Have you ever looked at open nights on your calendar and thought, okay, I guess I need to lower my price? Well, before you do that, watch this video because price may not be the problem at all. Hey, friend, I'm Stacey St. John. I'm a short term rental investor and property manager, and I manage a portfolio of about 45 properties. And one of the biggest lessons I've learned in revenue management is that when bookings aren't coming in, you have a whole lot more levers available to you other than simply dropping your rate. And that's exactly what we're digging into in this PriceLabs training. Kyle from PriceLabs is going to show us how things like minimum night requirements, length of stay discounts, booking windows, and even your base price can affect whether your calendar fills, and more importantly, how to figure out which lever you should actually pull. Be sure to stay with us to the end because Kyle is going to take us inside PriceLabs and show us how to use our own booking data to spot something incredibly important. Are you getting booked too early, too late, or right when you should be? Because once you understand that, you can stop guessing at your pricing strategy and start making decisions based on what your own data is telling you. So before you slash your rates to fill those empty nights, let's make sure you're solving the right problem. Let's dive in. So we are here today with Kyle Driscoll, a senior solutions consultant with Price. Kyle, it's so good to have you with us again.
Thank you so much for bringing me back. I'm looking forward to another fun episode with you.
Yes. So, this episode, we're all going to be talking about, I've been doing the wrong thing. I've been pulling the wrong lever. How do I fix this? So, so often people might have nights that just feel unbookable. And sometimes I think people can be confused. Do I have a price problem or is there another problem I should be looking at? What say you?
Majority of folks reach for the pricing lever first. And there's some cases where that makes a lot of sense. But generally speaking, that's not always the true issue that we're facing. A lot of times you might find that it's the minimum stays. It might be too restrictive and not as discoverable as you would like. A simple way of thinking this is we would all love to have a 4 or 5 night stay during low season. 4 or 5 night stay during any period is great. But if we would all love to have that 4 or 5 night stay. But if we set our minimum stays at 4 nights, then we are forcing the guest to look for 4 nights. And if they only look for 3 nights, they're not going to find us. We don't even exist to them. Whereas if you go in and you have a 2 night or a 3 night stay as your minimum and you're priced correctly, that person that's searching for 2 nights or searching for 3 nights may look at your listing, click on it and say, pricing looks pretty good. Let's extend this. Let's go for 4 or 5 nights instead of this. So minimum stays are very frequently the first lever that I would look at, and oftentimes very, very overlooked. Something else that's often overlooked when it comes to lower seasons in particular, or achieving those longer stays, is using the length of stay mechanisms that Airbnb and Booking.com guide to you. If we're in a lower season, offering something like a 10 to 15% weekly discount, offering a 10% monthly discount or 20% monthly discount can be really, really beneficial to you. So I think those are often overlooked. Minimum stays are by far the most overlooked in my opinion.
So let's talk about that. Maybe if it's okay, I'll bring your screen up to our viewers so that you can help us understand where do we even go to look at what our minimum stay settings are and how do we adjust those?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's start over here. And I keep referencing my Breckenridge property I've got over here because I think it has a lot of nuance for the audience to see. But the best way that you can view it is right here on your calendar. You can see those right there. Now, there's a chance you may not see this, or there's a chance that the audience may not see the events like this. You can click right here on this gearbox on calendar settings, and you have multiple options here. So if you see anything that's in my view that you don't have, you can click right in there and make that adjustment. But we can see those minimum stays here. And on some of the previous conversations we've had, we've talked about the minimum stay recommendation engine that PriceLabs has. And in previous conversations, I talked about it's looking at what's booking in the market. So October for this, there's not a lot going on there. But as we get into those holiday periods, it extends my minimum length of stay. As I get into my peak ski season, my weekends are extended. My spring break is at 5 nights. All of this is coming from our adaptive logic. So inside of your customizations, you go to edit right there, and then to your stay restrictions. And recommendation is to use PriceLabs recommended short-term rentals. You set your lowest minimum right here, and then you're going to have a nice little box right here where you can see what PriceLabs recommends. Now, when you get to the bottom of this, there's a couple of key things in here, and it's right here. Obviously, weekday versus weekend, but you have adaptive occupancy adjustments, and you also have adjustments for events and holidays. So starting with the events and holidays, whatever you see up here, if an event like spring break doesn't require, if it can get more than 4 nights, it'll automatically adjust that to you, and then it will continue automatically adjusting. If it doesn't work at 5 nights, it'll move to 4, so on and so forth. This is a key part though, the adaptive occupancy adjustment. Essentially, if you're underperforming the market, let's say you've got a 3-night stay and you are underperforming the market by 19 to 20%, we're going to take a night off of that, and you would have a 2-night minimum stay, hopefully get a booking, and then we correct that back to the 3-night. On the same side of that, if you're more than 20% below the market's occupancy, you've got that 3-night. And if you allow us to go to 1 night, we might try to get you a 1-night booking in the middle of a weekday just to get that occupancy up for you. And then as occupancy rises, get back to that correct minimum stay. So this recommendation engine essentially does everything for you if you're underperforming. And if the market is dictating a longer length of stay, it will also adapt that way for you as well. Now, if you want to get in and adjust it yourself, maybe you identify like, I don't know, man, three's just not going to work there for Thanksgiving. I want this to be 4 nights, or I want it to be 2 nights. Again, you can use a date specific override right here. You can set those restrictions here. And one other cool little tip that I don't usually share with everybody, but if you extend out, if you did something where you extended your minimum stay, or even if you increased your price, you have what's called an auto-expiration right here, where you can turn this on and say, yeah, I want to go after 4 nights, but I want that to fall off when I get 65. So you have the ability to set this and then literally set it and forget it because it's going to disappear.
I love that. That's great.
I think this is one of the most underutilized features in PriceLabs. If you recognize there is an opportunity to maybe your risk tolerance is a little high and you want to go for a 4-night Thanksgiving stay, go put it at 4 nights, understand your booking window. I picked 65 for a reason. I kind of understood the booking window for Thanksgiving previously, but understand your booking window and then set an expiration. It'll work perfectly for you, and then it'll go right back to whatever that recommendation engine's suggesting.
That's great. That's great. Now, I'm curious, from your perspective, when do you feel like it's the wrong idea to reduce your minimum stay?
That's tricky. It's very, very tricky. Events are one of the main things that I would hold my minimum stay a little bit harder on, especially if you know how people are traveling. But one of the things that I really, really, really love about PriceLabs, I've mentioned neighborhood data on every call that I've had with you, but you can see some really interesting things in here as you start to learn more about it. So I'm going to come in here and we're going to turn off some of this noise in our occupancy chart. And we're just going to focus in on what's happening this year. So I'm turning off all of these. I've got my events on there. My book nights are back here in gray. And then this red line tells me basically what's happening with minimum stays. If I look right here, you see how it's just a sharp spike? That tells me that a majority of people are booking 1 or 2 nights. I can see it. It starts to fall off of a cliff. Now I look right here from October 14th through October 22nd. It looks like there's an opportunity for some people to stick around a little bit longer. Yes, it has a little bit of a valley and all of that, but there's a little bit of an opportunity there. And what I'm trying to get at is as these occupancy lines are flattening out, you can see there's an opportunity for a longer length of stay. Right here for Christmas, Right now we're at 26% there. All of a sudden on the 27th, we jump up to 29. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, almost a 6-night average length of stay that you can see because of the market. On the same time over here in peak season. Now there's a little bit of a spike there. Friday and Saturday has more bookings. You've got some people that have picked up 1 or 2 nights, but overall this is pretty flat given what we're looking at compared to the rest of these. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, potentially a 6-night stay there as well for spring break. So you can use what is at your disposal to really understand this, what may be working for you.
So just to recap, if I'm looking at this graph and I see the sharp declines, it's typically a shorter length of stay opportunity, and the flatter lines are a longer length of stay opportunity.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I think this is a good example right here. It's very low. We don't have a ton of occupancy, but it sure looks like from October 23rd up until about right here, November 3rd, you've probably got the only people booking in the market staying for 10 days or so. Maybe they're there for a conference or something like that. But understanding what these spikes mean can be very beneficial for you. Again, this is a 1 or a 2-night stay that's being driven by some type of an event. And it's most likely just that it's weekend versus weekday there. But then we can look and find stuff like, hey, Christmas, you could probably get a 4 or a 5-night stay if your pricing is in line with where the market is.
Yeah, yep. No, that's great. I want to ask you about lead time pricing. What is that? And talk to us about when it matters.
Yeah, so lead time pricing is making sure that you're priced at the right time, kind of similar to what we were talking about with the booking window. Lead times and booking window are often interchangeable, but one of the ways that you can look at it is when do we, I'm going to take a step back to our previous conversation, and hopefully everybody's been able to see kind of all the videos. But this booking window is essentially saying we need to have half of our occupancy by that particular time. I think one of the best things you can use in regards to your booking window and your lead time, not necessarily during peak season, but you can use some early bird discounting. That's very beneficial for you, especially if you're in low season, having early bird discounting turned on there for you. But pricing at the right time is incredibly important. And that's what booking or lead time booking is essentially understanding where these booking windows are and then making sure that our pricing is a little elevated outside of it, and then we come back and walk it back to normal. Basically what we'll see here, if we look at these booking windows, we're in 60s, 50s, 40s. So let's just say on average, I need to be looking 40 to 80 days out. That should be how I'm looking at my calendars as well. I need to pay attention to here, but I really need to train my eyes on looking at where that booking window, where that lead time is, and making sure my rates make the most sense during that time period. So hopefully that helps answer that one.
Yeah, no, that's super, super helpful. I'm curious, what happens if my calendar is filling up like way far in advance with prices that I think I'm going to regret? How do I fix that, and what do I change?
If you are getting booked far out and you haven't made any crazy tweaks or anything like that, the first thing I would look at is, and again, if it's coming in lower, you may not want to have the early bird discounts on. Check and see if there's anything like that, any early bird discounts or anything. But ultimately, you're probably going to want to increase that base price if you're getting bookings that are well outside of your booking window, because, and I know it's doing everything for you, you've got that the ability to increase that base price and it correct on the outside. And essentially what you would be doing is elevating the base price. It may price you a little too high, but again, the system is always going to reanalyze itself and give you a recommendation to get back to reality if that's the case. But if you see that you're getting bookings well in advance of your booking window, most likely the first lever you need to pull is increase that base price. There's some other functionality you can do in there as well, but if that's the case, reach out to support@PriceLabs.co and somebody would probably take a look at your listing and give you a more specific recommendation there.
One of the things that I love is the visualization right here within the neighborhood data. So would you mind sharing with our audience what the purple lines mean and what the green lines mean, because I think this is a really great way to see where my bookings are coming in.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's probably some things on here that your audience doesn't necessarily have on there. So we're going to come first right here to chart options. And I'm going to show you what I think is very important for you to have in here. And then we'll walk this back. I'll turn everything off and we'll kind of unveil it one by one. But definitely have your events and holidays in there. Those are those purple guys that we see down there. I always like having my upcoming bookings, my last year bookings selected as well. That's what plots these greens and these blue lines for me. Now, under more options, you've got a few other things if you need them. I'll probably talk to you about that market book price here in a second, but we're not going to do that just yet. And then occupancy, I like having last year and pickup selected as well. Now, when you have all of those selected and you have everything turned on, it can get kind of noisy. But keep in mind, you can hide some of these things. You can click and drag and draw into things and then hit reset zoom so you can better understand this and dial it in. You also don't have to look at the full 360 days. You can dial it in to where it's a little bit tighter data set, so to speak. But for this, let's do 360. And I'm going to start on our pricing and let's hide everything. And we're going to start with events and holidays. So these are the purple dots that you see right here. Those are just nice little visual indicators so that you can understand where an event's sitting at for you. Now, I'm going to do upcoming bookings. That's these green lines that we see. So we can see that's the average daily rate for that stay. This one, I had a short little stay. This one, I've got a nice long stay getting into ski season. This one is going to help me plot where my pricing was booked at last year. So these are the blues that we see. And as you grow after you've been, working a property for more than a year or two, this really helps you see where you might be performing well or where you might have missed the boat, so to speak. We've got that on there now. Now we're going to do that bottom end of the market. And that's the gray. That's the 25th to 50th percentile. Anything in this white that's below that, you could consider that under market comparable. You get 50, 75th percentile. That's that darker pink right there. And then you get 75th to 90th percentile to show you there. That's going to be the top of the market. And what you'll see, and you'll kind of notice it here, the spread between the middle and the top of the market, it changes very drastically during a peak season. So we're kind of flat all the way across here. Boy, those change up drastically. You've got a lot more spread on each of these segments because of the way people are pricing. So this lets you know where everything's at. If you're up in this white area, you're over market price, kind of across the board, so to speak. Now, this little guy, the choppy line that you see up here, that's going to be your last seen price. What was my price yesterday? Or if you're just starting with PriceLabs and you've got this turned on, it'll show you what your prices are from whatever other system you may be using if you had priced on another system. Then we get to listing price. That's my black solid line. So I'm going to pull in right here so we can kind of see what's happening there. And as you can see with that, the choppy line versus the solid one, PriceLabs has picked up on something in this period that says, we need to bring the rate down just a little bit. So we went from 1641 to 1595. If a demand signal hits and all of a sudden we see an influx of bookings, that's probably going to react and bump back up to where it was. But no bookings coming in, we're starting to bring it down just a little bit. And then one other thing that's going to be beneficial, especially with what's happening with, not with PriceLabs, with Airbnb and them switching up the fees for everybody, you can come up here to edit preferences and you can add that markup right here. So that 15.5%, you can add that in here. And then that will allow you to have another line in here. So now I can see where my final price is going to be for that date to my consumer. So now I was at 1576, but with my markup, it's actually at 1820. And now I can see I'm still sitting more towards that 25th to 50th percentile. Yeah. Now, one final one to add in here, and sorry if this one's long-winded. You chop me up all you need to, is market booked price. And I think this can be very beneficial for folks to understand kind of what is happening. And that's this blue line that's popped in here. Now, turning some noise back off so we can focus in on that blue line. But what this line is, and actually let me put it back in that 25th to 50th so we can see it. This blue line is what the average price is if there's been at least 5 bookings in the market for my hyper local comp set. So that's why we see this gap right here. That means from October 22nd up until November 10th, there are not 5 4-bedroom properties in Breckenridge booked. So we can't really see it, but this can help us understand where pricing should be or where on average it's booking. And if you look at where PriceLabs is kind of at, especially far out, it's booked about where it should be, so to speak. So this can just kind of help you where there might be an opportunity there.
Now, I have a question right there. So it says February 27. All right. So the black line, your listing price is well above the market booked price. Yep. If you saw that, what would you do?
I would leave this where it's at. And the reason for that is because, again, we've got our past booking right here, that blue line, and then we've got our current booking, that green line. The reason that rate is so high, and I'm going to come back over to my calendar and then we'll come back over here, is because a part of our algorithm that's there to protect you, and it's called the safety minimum price. So what that is, I've got a minimum price of $150 here, but on high value dates where I have a booking in the past, if it's more than 6 months in advance, PriceLabs is trying to get that rate from last year plus a little bit more. So it's extra protection for you, particularly for peak season. This is very advantageous. Now, if we come right here, you can see it's indicating I'm at my lowest price, but my lowest price is $1,543. And that's because I was able to achieve last year 1402.5. Now, here's something that's really interesting, and I love that you pointed this out. The safety minimum price was introduced not too long ago. We just brought it in as a core part of our algorithm to really protect. I booked out at $1,378 right there. That was before the safety minimum price came into play. Well, now I can see $1,543 is what that pricing would be here for that one. So now I'm more protected, and I wish I hadn't had that booked up, so to speak. But on the other side of this one, now it's down just a little bit because those were 2 separate bookings there. So that's there to protect me, but that will fall off and become more in line with market, so to speak, as soon as we hit that 6-month window.
Gotcha. Interesting. Boy, you learn something new every day. I love it.
Right down here at the bottom of your customizations as well. So if you ever have any questions about any of these that are applying, just hover over that little eye and it'll tell you exactly what's going on with it.
Okay. Love it. Now, I'm curious if someone is seeing, hey, I'm not getting booked up and I make adjustments to my pricing in PriceLabs, how long should it be taking me to know that the adjustments I've made are working or not?
Yeah, it's a really tough one to answer kind of broadly, because I do recommend working in smaller percentages as you make tweaks. I haven't really been able to share my background or anything like that, but real quick, I worked for a large property management company, and I used to do things very, very manually out of spreadsheets. And I've been in PriceLabs every day for basically the past 5 years, 2 of those as a customer, 3 of those as an employee. I really have a lot of trust in our system. There's always going to be an occasional thing that might be a little bit off or something like that. Usually it's when demand is really, really high. Maybe we go for a too high of a rate occasionally, but I think it's important to make tweaks occasionally, do them in small doses, 5%, 10%, those types of things, and then check them every 2 or 3 days. Really focus in on your booking pickup. If it's low season, my recommendation, check once a week, so to speak. Or if you're entering lower season, maybe once a week. But for peak season, be a little bit more hands-on with it. And again, don't go and slice your legs out from under you. Don't go take 25% off of rate. Start at 5%, let it sit for a day or 2, then move it to 10%, let it sit for a day or 2, so on and so forth. That way you can understand the patterns that might be able to influence a booking. If I go in and I just take 25% off and it gets booked, I don't know if it could have been booked at 20% off or 15% off. If I go methodically with it, I can observe it and then apply that later down the line. Or even better, if you pay attention, you start to observe these types of patterns like, hey, if I adjust my rates 15%, I get booked up every time. That's one of those things you can reach out to support at pricelabs.co for, and you might get a recommendation to say, hey, we need to go in here and tweak demand factor, or we might want to go and customize something for you and help automate that instead of you having to go in there and constantly continuing to manage it.
Yeah, love that. I love your support team. Again, you guys are awesome, and I love that you help your everyday users in so many ways. It's phenomenal.
Those are my gals and guys. They are what runs PriceLabs for sure. We've got a great product team, great data science team. Everybody in our team's awesome, but the support is unlike anything else in my opinion.
So good. So good. Kyle, this has been phenomenal. Thank you once again for another super informative episode. Really appreciate you.
Hey, absolutely. Thank you for having me and looking forward to the next one.
At this point, you know there are a whole lot more levers you can pull than simply lowering your nightly rate. But there's another piece of this that can completely change the decisions you make. What is your competition actually charging? And friend, this is where it gets interesting because the nightly rate you see on a competitor's calendar may not be what their guest is actually paying. And in the next video, Kyle is showing us exactly how to build a meaningful comp set, use neighborhood data, and compare the real bookable price of your property against your competition. This one might completely change how you look at your comps. Check out that next video, and I'll see you there.